you kindly? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find it? Would you kindly get this?
What I've heard the fan community say is, I want my Mario, I want my Zelda, and I want the best of third party. And that's what we're looking to bring to consumers.
And I'm going to expose you for the fraud that you are once and for all. And not just as a professional fraud, but as a personal fraud as well.
What is going on, people? This is going to be a fairly lengthy video, so if you're up for that, watch. If not, then don't watch. But before I begin, I just want to say something really quick. If you cannot handle my videos, if they make you upset, if you don't like them, if they're tiring, if you feel like they're repeats, then don't watch. Just don't watch my videos. Believe me, my life will go on even if you don't watch my videos. Because it's funny to me how much a lot of you people hate me, dislike me, tell me to be quiet, tell me to stop making videos, tell me to stop posting comments, and yet you watch my videos, you visit my channel, you post comments, and you reply to my comments. So my only question to you is, why are you venturing into places where you clearly express a dislike? Now moving on to my video. If you're ever wondering why I'm so critical of Nintendo and why I'm so hard on Nintendo, it's because I like Nintendo. It is no different from me being critical on the Philadelphia Phillies, the Philadelphia Flyers, the Eagles, or the Sixers. Take the Eagles for example. When me, the fan, is used to winning 10, 11, 12 games every season, going to NFC championships 4 years in a row, making the playoffs, dominating the division, and being overall successful year in and year out, why am I going to be happy with mediocrity? Why am I going to be happy with not making the playoffs, with having an 8-8 season? Why as a fan am I going to be happy with a team underperforming, much in the same way that Nintendo is doing? So much in the same way that we wanted Andy Reid out, that we wanted him to resign or for him to be fired, it is time for Iwata and Reggie to go. Just like how Kaz resigned from his position, Reggie and Iwata either need to resign or be terminated, because both of them need to go. Nintendo as it stands right now is completely out of touch with gaming. Maybe not in handhelds, they seem to be doing fine in handhelds, but as far as consoles go, they don't have a goddamn clue on what they're doing or what the consumer wants. They're going to be looking at this article written by Emily Rogers talking about Iwata, hubris versus Western culture, and it's a very good read. I'll put the link in the description. I'll link the article so you guys can read it yourself. It's very lengthy, but it pretty much goes into detail of why Iwata and Reggie need to go. We'll start out in the beginning. Promises, promises, promises. Every generation, Iwata tells investors, gamers, and retailers that they will avoid major software droughts because these can kill a platform's momentum after launch. Iwata never learns from anything. He always says he's learned from his past mistakes, but his actions never show it. Instead, every single generation, all we get from him is a whole bunch of "please understand" and "I apologize for the inconvenience," and this article is 100% true. Same thing, generation in, generation out. And what is funny is all these Nintendo guys love to harp on, it's Sony, it's PlayStation. That's the only people that do this, the only people that want to boast and fabricate and lie and pretty much sugarcoat everything, when Nintendo themselves is pretty much one of the biggest offenders when it comes to keeping promises and then breaking them. Continuing on, Iwata says we will avoid major droughts that plagued the GameCube, March 2007. When we launched GameCube, the initial sales were good. However, after this period, we could not provide the market with strong software titles in a timely fashion. As a result, we could not lever the initial launch time momentum, and sales of the GameCube slowed down. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Familiar until, you know, the Wii U? It came out with, you know, some decent third-party games, even though they were on other competing platforms and maybe not superior or anything like that, but the games were there if anybody wanted them. I guess you had a Mario game, if you had a Nintendo Land game, Zombie U, if those were the kind of games you wanted, but where have we been since then? It's now April, and they're just getting the next batch of games in Lego City and Monster Hunter Ultimate $50 DLC. Moving on. Nintendo has increased R&D budgets in the last couple of years. What will be the R&D spending like in the coming years? And this is an answer to a question posed to Iwata. He says, our internal development resources alone are not enough to make attractive enough commodities for the consumers. Translation: Nintendo and even Iwata admit themselves that their own in-house development staff, their gaming companies, their developers, whatever you want to call them, is not enough to satisfy the consumer alone. Translation: they need third-party support. They need additional outside help that Nintendo's first and second-party game development studios cannot pull the boat by themselves. Iwata even admits it, people. It's right here. Now, moving on. This is my whole big deal about my problems with Iwata, because he says one thing, and like the article earlier said, he doesn't follow up on it. He says we've learned, and yet they show no action into what they so-called learned. Iwata promises that 3DS will avoid major droughts that plague the Wii and the DS. It's important that you're able to supply software with no pause, said Iwata. With the DS and the Wii, following the titles that were released at launch, the momentum dropped when there was a gap in software releases. We're making plans so this will not happen again. And yet, look what happened with the Wii U. After the launch, we went December, January, February, March, with nothing. Iwata promises that the Wii U will avoid major droughts that plague the Wii and the 3DS, as we learned a bitter lesson with the launch of the Nintendo 3DS. You really learned, didn't you, Iwata? Because like I said, 4 months without games? That's learning. And as far as you releasing games from your Nintendo developers, you still haven't done it since launch. The company was unable to launch much anticipated first-party titles for the Wii, nor for the Nintendo 3DS in a timely fashion in the first half of the term. Iwata apologizes for the Wii U drought in January and February. Translation, people: Iwata likes to talk, but he doesn't like to walk the walk. He says he's learned and that he recognizes his failures and his errors, but yet in the end he does nothing to rectify this for the Wii U. Now, I know what you guys are saying. The 3DS, you know, it made a turnaround, but the 3DS had no competition. The Vita was dead on arrival. If you want to compare the Vita being competitive to the PlayStation, the Xbox brands being competitive, then you need to get your head examined. Now, moving on. If there's anything that defines Iwata's legacy, it's his inability to make you understand. I mean, look at all these lines and sources from Iwata. Please understand, 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 please understand. Why is this man keep saying, please understand? Why is it our job to please understand? It should be his job to make us understand. It should be his job to understand. This guy clearly has no clue in what he's doing and is clearly out of touch. Again, sorry. I feel very sorry. I apologize. I sincerely apologize. I feel greatly accountable. May feel betrayed and criticize this decision. I apologize to those supporting the Wii U. I mean, enough with the apologies. When are we gonna see the action? Anybody can say sorry, anybody can apologize, but sorry means nothing if the actions don't rectify the apology, if the actions don't support the apology. Iwata in May 2004. Today's consoles already offer fairly realistic expressions, so simply beefing up the graphics will not let most of us see a difference. Iwata in 2005 talking about the Wii. The fact of the matter is, people are going to connect our machine, the Wii, and the PS3 360 to an ordinary TV set at home and try to compare the differences. I don't think they can tell much of a huge difference between the machines. Iwata, June 20th, 2006, again talking about the Wii. I myself can tell a difference between those areas, but I don't like technologies. As I said earlier, the notion to be able to make more beautiful graphics is tempting. High resolution sound tempting too. Iwata in 2012 admits there was a big difference. In terms of graphical capability, there was a sheer difference between the Wii and the other two devices, most notably between SD and HD. So let's look at the whole overview. Iwata went from "will not let most of us see a difference" to "I really don't think they can tell such a huge difference between the machines" to "I myself can tell the resultant difference in the areas even if many others can" to finally, in terms of graphical capability, there was a sheer difference between the Wii and the other two devices. So essentially we went from "there's not a big difference" to "consumers can't tell a big difference" to "oops, there is a big difference." So let's do the math, people. It's funny how Nintendo wants to treat third-party development and treat third parties in general, because it's like they have no clue. Iwata says Western territories, North America and Europe, have bigger populations than Japan, so hardware needs to sell better in those territories. Iwata says Western gamers prefer Western software rather than software from Japanese developers. Iwata says that the presence of Japanese developers is much less in comparison to the Western developers. So why isn't the Western third-party support a major priority to Nintendo if they are serious about selling their hardware to the West? Western support equals popular games that appeal to the Western taste. More consoles sold in the West. So why did Nintendo overspend for a tablet controller instead of creating hardware that can attract Western support, aka more powerful hardware that Western developers like? So essentially Nintendo fails to get a new audience with this tablet gamepad, but now they're losing Western publishers and Western support. Even though licensing royalties make up a huge chunk of money for Nintendo, you would think that they would go after third party and make third party, especially in the West, a bigger priority for the company. And now we have Reggie. Oh, Reggie. Nintendo of America president Reggie has admitted that he's confident the Wii U will be able to fend off the Xbox console and the PlayStation 4. And yet, it's going to be very well supported by third-party publishers, he said. It's going to be very well supported. Yet, well, Reggie, I hate to break it to you, man, but you're not getting the Frostbite engine. You're not getting the Unreal 4 engine, and a lot of developers already don't want to make games for you on the current gen engines. And now that you're not getting the next gen engines, exactly how are you going to get games? The 2006 Nintendo console also lacked processing power. Capability of the games engines with the console, the Wii, just couldn't handle the dominant graphic engines of the last generation. The fact of the matter was that 2004, 2005, 2006 of their early development engines were not compatible with what we're going to. That is not the case today. And yet the lesson still has not been learned. He says it right here, that the Wii had problems because those engines for the Xbox 360, PC, and PS3 were not compatible with the Wii, but later goes on to say that is not the case today. Well, I hate to break it to you, Reggie, but that is the case today, because the Unreal Engine 4 is not being targeted for the Wii U. The new Frostbite engine is not being targeted for the Wii U. It's not even on the Wii U. It's not even scalable to the Wii U. There's no compatibility whatsoever. So I think I've proven my point, people, that Reggie and Iwata keep going back and forth. They're hypocrites in what they say. They're completely out of touch in everything they're doing pretty much as far as it goes to Nintendo and console gaming, and they've had their run, they did a good job with the Wii, they made a ton of money, but as of now, it's time, people. It's time to clean house, it's time to get new management, it's time to get people that are more in touch with today's gaming and today's consumer. And really, people, if you want Nintendo to do better, you'd have to agree with this. There's nothing else you can say. Just like Andy Reid, they had their run, and now their time, it's over. It's done.
Western developers historically have been wanting to see that larger install base before they jump in behind a platform. We need Batman, we need Mass Effect. And so making sure that we have strong third-party support on those genres, critically important. That's our thrust for the hardest of the core. What they say is, boy, I want to play that game, and we need to make sure we have that game for them to play. The launch window group of games, it was actually a bit sparse. You look at where we are right now, we're pretty confident that there'll be a great pacing of content during those first number of months. We're giving it a lot of thought, and for that active gamer who's looking to buy something brand new on a regular basis, there's going to be a lot there. You know, it is critical for us to pace our games in a way that's going to drive that momentum. And interestingly, again, if you go back to the launch of Wii, you know, we had some games at launch, and then there was a bit of a lull. Then we came back with some more. So, you know, there's not an exact science to this, but clearly, if you look back at 3DS, what we didn't have at 3DS was, at launch, the first-party killer app, right? It was not Steel Diver, it was not Pilot Wings Resort, but, you know, my job is to launch the system and to drive its install base, and we're going to do that very effectively. And then, you know, hopefully I create the opportunity for third party to jump on board. What I've heard the fan community say is, I want my Mario, I want my Zelda, and I want the best of third party. And that's what we're looking to bring to consumers.
I apologize to those supporting Wii U about the lack of new titles, the lack of new titles, the lack of...
Screw you! You're fired!